अस्सलाम वालेकुम। उम्मीद करता हूँ आप सब खैर खैरियत से होंगे। मैं भी ठीक हूँ। जैसा कि आप लोगों ने टाइटल तो पढ़ ही लिया होगा कि हम कनाडा में रहते हुए कैसे स्टडी वीज़ा को वर्क परमिट पे कन्वर्ट कर सकते हैं। सो मेरे साथ भी कुछ ऐसा ही हुआ था कि मैं तो अपने फादर के बेस पे आया हुआ हूँ। तो मुझे यहाँ पे जब मैं आया था एयरपोर्ट से, मैंने अपना वर्क स्टडी परमिट उठाया था। तो मुझे फिर उसके बाद मैं जब यहाँ पे अपने घर आया तो अगले दिन ही मैंने जाके अपना हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस भी करा ली और सिन नंबर बनवाना था। लेकिन उन्होंने बोला कि आपको वर्क करना यहाँ अलाउ नहीं है क्योंकि आप अपनी फादर के बेस पे आए हुए हैं। और जो आप वो परमिट लेते हैं एयरपोर्ट से, स्टडी परमिट, तो उस पे लिखा हुआ होता है कि कंडीशंस में कि आप वर्क कर सकते हो, नहीं कर सकते हो, और भी बहुत कुछ लिखा होता है। तो मैं आपको यहाँ पे शो कर देता हूँ। तो लिया होगा, मेरा भी कुछ ऐसे ही स्टडी परमिट है। सो अब मैं यहाँ पे फरवरी में आया था। तो 2 महीने तक तो मेरा यही चलता रहा कि मैं कैसे क्या करूँ। और मैंने अपना यहाँ पे स्किल वर्कर के लिए पढ़ना भी था। तो मैं इलेक्ट्रिशियन अप्रेंटिसशिप कर रहा हूँ यहाँ पे, और उसके सिलसिले में मुझे वर्क परमिट चाहिए होगा। वो भी स्टडी परमिट पे नहीं हो सकता। तो आपको मैं बताऊंगा कि मैंने कैसे अप्लाई किया। और मैं जब पाकिस्तान में था तो 5 महीने के अंदर अंदर मेरा स्टडी वीज़ा आ गया था। और पूरी फैमिली का आया था क्योंकि फैमिली, अब्बू ने हमारा जो है वो स्पाउस वीज़ा लगाया था। लेकिन वर्क परमिट आने में हमें 11 महीने लग गए थे। मेरी मदर का वर्क परमिट था। तो मैं बताता हूँ कि किस तरह आप अप्लाई कर सकते हैं वर्क परमिट कनाडा में रहते हुए। बाकी जहाँ तक बात रही कि उसमें क्या क्या ज़रूरतें होंगी, तो आपने जब स्टूडेंट वीज़ा लिया होगा, आपने स्टूडेंट वीज़ा आपका आ गया होगा, तो उसके लिए आप लोगों ने मेडिकल, बायोमेट्रिक, अपना करेक्टर सर्टिफिकेट और दूसरी भी पासपोर्ट भी सबमिट कराया होगा। तो आपकी सारी इन्फॉर्मेशन उधर चली गई होगी। आपके पास 6 महीने या 8 महीने का टाइम होता है मेडिकल, अपना मेडिकल सर्टिफिकेट पे जो जो चीज़ें होती हैं वो रखने का। और 8 महीने बाद फिर आपका जो है एक्सपायर हो जाता है वो। तो मेरे पास वो था। तो मैंने जब अप्लाई किया तो उसमें मेरे को एक मेडिकल की ज़रूरत थी, बायोमेट्रिक की, और तस्वीरें थी मेरी, उसकी ज़रूरत थी। बाकी सारा आपने लिखना था उस पर डॉक्यूमेंट्स पे।
तो चलिए शुरू करते हैं।
So you'll find this form in this guide 5553 that you see on the screen here. It's a generic guide for application of open work permit inside of Canada, and I'm going to link it in the description below. So if I scroll down and click on completing the forms, you'll get to the forms section, and in this forms section you see 5710 is right here. So you're simply going to click this and download this, and this is what the form is going to look like. So I'll quickly go through this form and I'll try to cover up some common questions that cause confusion, but mostly we'll be going through this form from a generic perspective. So once you go through this form, you should be able to understand that logic and apply it to whatever category of open work permit inside Canada you're applying under. All right. So let's begin. Alright, so first up is UCI. So this is your 8 or 10 digit number which is assigned to you whenever you get any kind of visa for Canada. So look into your previous records or whatever visa you have and you should find this number. This number should also be in your application or in your account if you created an account on the IRCC portal and you were assigned a UCI. Alright, then I want service, so you can select English. Number 3, I'm applying for one or more of the following. So select whatever applies to you. So if you're applying for a work permit with the same employer, meaning your work permit is expiring and you're renewing it and your employer hasn't changed, then obviously you'll select this box. If your work permit has expired and you're trying to restore your status, then you'll select this box. Or if you're applying for a work permit for the first time, so let's say you're in Canada on a tourist visa and you are eligible to apply for open work permit. So this would be your first ever application. So this box will apply to most of the applicants. So just select this box, okay? And obviously if this applies to you, the temporary resident permit for inadmissible applicants only, then you'll select this box. So let's just select with this one for simplicity that this is your first ever open work permit application from inside Canada. Then personal details, pretty straightforward to fill out. So last name here under family name and first name here. So I'm just going to use my name as an example. Have you used any other names? So just stick with no for simplicity. Then you'll fill out some more personal details. So sex, let's go with male. Date of birth, so hypothetical date of birth. Place of birth, so let's go with Mumbai. Country or territory, let's go with India. Citizenship, so let's say you are a citizen of India. Current country or territory of residence, so obviously you are in Canada right now, that's why you're applying for open work permit inside Canada, and your status could be any of these. So let's assume you're on a visitor visa and you're applying for spouse open work permit. In that case, you're going to select visitor. But obviously if you're on a work visa right now that is expiring, you can select worker or any other status that applies to you. So let's stick with visitor. And then there is a from and a to date. So the from date is the start date of your immigration status. So when your visa was issued to you. So let's say April 30th was when your visa was issued to you. And then most likely it's going to be valid for 6 months. So let's select October 30th. Then number 8 is previous countries or territories of residence. So during the past 5 years, have you lived in any country or territory other than your country of citizenship or your country or territory of residence included above? So because your country of citizenship is India and current country of residency is Canada, and if you have not lived anywhere else for 6 months in the past 5 years, then you can just select no. If you have, let's say you have lived in any other country than India or Canada, then you will have to provide details here. So just for simplicity, let's assume no, and this is going to gray out. Then your current marital status. So let's assume you're married and you're applying for spouse open work permit. So then you're going to select married. And then you have to provide the date of your marriage. So I'm just going to go with a hypothetical date here. Then provide the name of your spouse. So again, last name here and first name here. So I'm just going to go with my wife's name. Then if you're married or in a common law relationship, is your spouse or common law partner a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident? So obviously if your spouse is a Canadian citizen or PR, then you are going to check this box yes. But let's assume for this video that your spouse is on a student visa in Canada or they are on a temporary work visa, then you are simply going to select no. Alright, personal details. Have you previously been married or in a common law? Let's assume no. And this is all going to gray out. Languages, so this is your native language. So I'm just going to select my native language right here. Are you able to communicate in English or French? So let's select English. Have you taken a test from a designated testing agency? So if you have, you can check this box. Otherwise, you can simply check no. I'm just going to check no. Then this is where you provide your current passport number, country of issue, issue date, and expiry date. National identity document. So if you have a national identity document, just check this box and provide the details here. Otherwise, simply check no. You can check this box yes and then provide the details of your Aadhaar card if you're an Indian. But a lot of people often debate that it's not a national identity document, even though it's not, but you can still provide details of your Aadhaar card here. I would just check no for simplicity. It's not really going to make much difference. Are you a lawful permanent resident of US? So just stick with no for this case. And this is where you provide your complete contact information. So this is your current address in Canada, because remember you're applying for open work permit from inside Canada. So you have to provide your current mailing address in Canada, and then residential address, mailing address, simply check yes, and it's just going to gray these out. Then telephone number. So you can simply check this box and provide your telephone number here. Alternate telephone number, you can simply leave this blank. If you don't have fax, if you don't have, just leave it blank. Email address, so now this is where you'll provide the applicant's email address, and it's important to provide that because they might send communication on this email address. So provide your email address that you use on a regular basis. Alright, so next up is coming into Canada. So number 1 is date and place of your original entry to Canada. This means the first time ever that you entered Canada, whenever that was, first ever time. So you can simply go through your passport and look up whenever you entered, just to make sure that the date matches, and put that date here. Let's assume you came in May of 2022. So I'm simply going to list 2022, and whatever date was your first landing, put that date here. All right. And let's say you landed in Toronto, YYZ or Pearson International Airport. So you can simply write the short form here. Then the original purpose for coming to Canada. So let's assume you simply came to visit your family. Then date and place of your most recent entry to Canada, if not the same as original entry. So let's just assume that the original entry was your first ever entry and that's the most recent entry. So I'm not going to populate anything here. But if your original entry date and the most recent entry date don't match, let's say you have traveled to Canada before and now you're coming again for the second time, then make sure that you list that date here. Okay, so I'm simply going to leave this blank. Then if applicable, provide the document number of the most recent visitor record, study permit, work permit or temporary resident permit issued to you. Obviously, whatever visa you might have been issued which allowed you to come to Canada will have a document number on top of it. So make sure you put that document number right here, alright? So your document number will most likely be a letter which is followed by 9 digits. So I'm just going to go with a hypothetical number here. Then details of intended work in Canada. So what type of work permit are you applying for? So let's say you're applying for an open work permit. Then details of your prospective employer. So because this is an open work permit, you don't need an employer, you don't need an offer letter or anything. So simply leave this blank. Have you been issued a certificate under the provincial nominee program? Just stick with no for the purpose of this case. Then education. Have you had any post-secondary education including university, college or apprenticeship training? So let's check yes. And then it says give full details of your highest level of education. So let's say you've done your bachelor's and your master's, you'll only provide the details of your master's here. Remember, the highest level of education. So let's go with an example. Let's say from 2012 January through 2014 December, you were studying MBA, and this is, let's say, University of Mumbai, and city was Mumbai, country was India. Next up is employment. So it asks you to give details about your employment for the past 10 years. So I've already filled this out for you just to show you an example. So you'll start with the most recent and then you'll keep going back. All right. So let's say you came to Canada on a visitor visa in May 2022. So from May 2022 to now, which is October 2022, when you're sending the open work permit application, so you haven't been able to work until now because obviously you were on a visitor visa. So you can simply write unemployed here and you will, let's say, living in Toronto, Canada, Ontario, and under company or employer name, you can simply write NA, all right, because you were unemployed. Then from 2015 January to 2022 April, basically a time immediately before this one. Let's say you were working as a business analyst in Mumbai for XYZ Corporation, your country was India. And then let's say from 2012 January through 2014 December, you were living in Mumbai, but you were unemployed because you were pursuing your master's degree from University of Mumbai. So this is just to give you an idea on how you can provide your employment details for the past 10 years. If you have not worked in any period, you can simply list unemployed, and then you can provide a reason here such as pursuing a master's degree and they'll know. It's not really going to cause any issues, but I would suggest that don't leave out gaps in between. They don't really like to see gaps, and that's why I've tried to keep it consistent from one period immediately to the next. So let's say you were unemployed in between two jobs. It's a good idea to list that here. All right. Now, obviously the space that they've given here to provide information about your employment history is limited. So let's say you've changed many jobs, you might not be able to provide all the information here. It's nothing to worry about. Provide whatever you can in this particular section, and then whatever remains, you can simply list that in a Word document and label that Word document as IMM 5710 additional employment history, and then provide all your details there. Then once you upload this form, you can also upload that additional Word document to provide more details. And I'm going to talk more about that when we get to the upload part, but that's how you can provide additional details. Then background information. So within the past 2 years, have you or family member ever had tuberculosis? So let's just check no. Do you have any physical or mental disorder? Let's just check no. Have you ever remained beyond the validity of your status? So let's just check no. Have you ever been refused a visa or permit? Let's just keep no for simplicity. But if you have been refused a visa, that doesn't really harm your application. Simply provide the explanation here why you were refused. Then have you previously applied to enter or remain in Canada? So let's say you came to Canada on a visitor visa and now you're applying for a spouse open work permit. So when you applied for a visitor visa, that becomes a previous application. So you can simply check yes, and here you can simply provide explanation as applied for visitor visa in, let's say you applied 2021 December, and obviously that visa was approved, that's why you're in Canada. So you can simply provide details such as approved on and that particular date that the visa was approved on, and you can also list your document number here, whatever document number was on your visitor record, just for more details. All right, then have you ever committed or been arrested? So let's just check no. Then did you serve in military? Let's just check no. Are you or have you ever been a member associated with a political party? Check no. Have you witnessed or participated in treatment of prisoners? Check no. Do you consent to be contacted? Yes. And this is where you are going to type your full name. So let's say I was applying for my open work permit. So I'm simply going to type my first name and my last name here. And I'm going to put today's date here. And then once you're done, you're simply going to click this validate button. And looks like we have an error at the telephone number section. So let's go back here. Oh, I just have to select the type of telephone. So let's select cellular. And if I go back down again and hit validate, okay, good. So it says that the validation has completed. So once the form validates, it's going to generate barcodes like this. Okay, and these are important. So make sure that you hit the validate button and generate these barcodes. It's basically a sign that your form is now complete. So you don't have to print this out and hand sign it. You typing in your name is signature enough for the principal applicant. And the instructions also tell you not to sign. I'm going to show those instructions to you in a second. And once the form is done, you can simply hit file and save. And then you will upload this in your open work permit application, which we are going to talk about next. So in order to upload this form, you are first going to sign into your MyCIC or GCKey account, and you have to have an account here, otherwise you won't be able to do the open work permit application. So make sure you create an account if you already don't have one. All right, so this is the MyCIC account. I've signed in, and this is where you'll click on apply to come to Canada. And since you don't have a personal reference code, you can simply click on work permit, and here you are going to answer a few questions to further determine your eligibility. And because you already know that you're eligible, but you'll still have to do this. All right. So what would you like to do in Canada? So simply select work. How long are you planning to stay? Let's say temporarily, more than 6 months. Select the code that matches the one on your passport. So let's say India. What is your current country of residence? So you are in Canada right now. So I'm going to select Canada. Do you have a family member who's a citizen or PR? So if your family member is a citizen or PR, let's say they're about to sponsor you, then you'll select that. But let's say your family member is a student on study visa or a worker on work permit. So you will simply select no. What is your date of birth? So let's just go with the hypothetical date of birth here real quick, and then you'll hit next. Are you a lawful permanent resident of the United States? So let's just check no. What is your current immigration status? So let's say you are on a visitor visa. Then does any one of the following apply to you? So if your spouse is a PR or citizen, and let's say they've sponsored you, so this is the option that applies to you. I applied for PR and was found eligible, first stage approval. So you're going to select yes. Let's assume this is not the case for this particular scenario. So let's say for this scenario, you're a spouse of a work permit holder. So your spouse is working on a work visa in Canada and you are on a visitor visa. Then this applies to you, the first line here. Your spouse is working in a NOC code 0A or B. So then you are going to select yes. Then are you a spouse, common law partner, or dependent child of a person who belongs to any of these categories? For the purpose of this video, let's simply say no. Then are you applying under the Canada, USA, or Mexico agreement? For the purpose of this video, let's just select no. Next. Then what is your marital status? So remember, we are sticking with this case that your spouse is working on a work visa in Canada under NOC code 0A or B. So obviously you are married. So I'm going to select married. What is your province of destination? So let's say you are in Ontario, meaning you are on a temporary visa in Ontario and you want to work in Ontario. So let's just select Ontario. And then based on the answers that you gave, it tells you that you are eligible to apply for open work permit. So even if you have completed your form and you already know your eligibility, this is just a tool that you will have to go through anyway in order to get to the application portal. So now that you've been determined to be eligible, you're simply going to click continue, and then you will answer a few more questions to get your personalized checklist. I'm pretty sure that if you are filling this form 5710, you must have already gone through this. So, but I still wanted to take you through this just to be sure. So, are you accompanying a family member who has status in Canada? So now this section confuses a lot of people because when you click on this question mark, it defines accompanying a family member means you will be staying with a family member who's already in Canada as a visitor, worker, or student. And then it gives you kind of a contradictory information here that accompanying family member is a spouse, common law partner, or dependent child who plans to immigrate to Canada with the principal applicant. So let's just stick with this first definition that accompanying a family member means you will be staying with a family member who is already in Canada as a visitor, worker, or student. So if you select yes, what it's going to do is when you get to the application page, it's going to ask you to upload your proof of relationship. If you select no, it's not really going to hurt your application. You can still upload your proof of relationship or marriage documents in a separate section. So let's just select yes for the purpose of this video. And then once we get to that page, I'm going to tell you how it might be different if you selected no. When does your status in Canada expire? So let's say your status expires December of 2022. So I'm just going to select that date real quick. Have you had a medical exam performed by an IRCC authorized panel physician within the last 12 months? So let's say you came on a visitor visa a couple months ago and you have had a medical exam done. So you will select yes. Do you want to submit an application for a family member? So you're only submitting the application for yourself. So select no. Next, are you giving access to your application to someone? So for the purpose of this video, let's just keep it simple. No. Then have you had your fingerprints given in the last 10 years? So you came on a visitor visa, you probably did your fingerprints then. So let's just select yes. Fees, yes, I'll be paying the application fees. Digital copy, I can make yes. Paying online, yes. And then you basically have to review your answers right here. So hit continue once you review, and then it gives you the instructions to follow when you are submitting these documents. So notice this instruction right here. You do not need to sign your application form by hand if you're submitting it online. That's what I was talking about when I validated the form, that you don't need to print and sign and scan back. You simply have to type in your name in the form and hit the validate button, and that works as a digital signature. All right. So if you click on continue, it's going to give you your personalized document checklist. Obviously you are familiar with this page because you knew to submit the 5710. So this is where you will simply click on upload and choose file, and the form that you just saved 5710, you are simply going to upload it here. And then you hit the upload button, and what it does is it matches the answers that you provided in your PDF form with the answers that you have provided in this portal, just to make sure that they match. So if the answers don't match, if there's any discrepancy, then it's going to point that out here and you will get an error in your upload. So that's why make sure that whatever information you enter in this form matches the information that you are going to provide in this online tool, and only then upload the form. Otherwise your upload is going to fail. All right. So because all my information matched, that's why the upload was successful. And then I can simply click on return to documents. So remember we talked about additional employment history. So in this section, when you did the employment section in this form, if you could not provide all your employment information, but you had to finish this form because the space is limited, and now that the form is already uploaded, what you can do is you can prepare a Word document, provide all the other additional employment history, label it as history, and then you can simply upload it in the client information. All right. And one more thing, because we selected yes in the accompanying family member section that I talked about, that's why this marriage certificate and family member proof of certificate section show up here. If you had selected no in the accompanying family member section, then these two won't show up here. But it's not going to cause any issue. Let's say you selected no, then the marriage license and the family member proof of status will probably not show up here. Then what you can do is simply upload the marriage related documents and the proof of relationship documents for your application in this client information section as well. Okay, so whatever doesn't show up here but has to be uploaded, you can combine all those documents and simply upload them in the client information section. And that's why this client information section is provided here. All right.